Hello everybody, welcome back to the third part of the Jon Gomm Passionflower tutorial. If this video is out, it means that we have reached 300 subscribers, so thank you so much to anyone who subscribed to this channel. Let's get right into it. So the setup is the same as in the previous two videos. We need to have the E string wound up counterclockwise. We have the alternative tuning. If you have this set up, then you can continue with this tutorial. In the last video we learned some percussive and fingerstyle stuff. This part that we learned in the last video is actually going to be repeated a second time, but the second time we played with small modifications, and I will tell you what the differences are at this second repetition. So we started with the first percussive pattern, which went like this. Remember, we had this sort of rolling our fingers. And here is the first modification that comes. Instead of rolling these fingers, we will hit the hi-hat 3 times. At the second repetition, and we will do that as triplets, so it will sound like this. So instead of, we will do at the second repetition I will now repeat this beat several times so that you get a feeling for the timing of the hi-hat. Let's do it once more, a little bit slower. Okay. So this is the first percussive pattern that we play at the second repetition. There's only this small change. Then what comes next is that we play our whole finger picking part like we used to. So again, we start with picking the A string, and while picking the A string we also hit the hi-hat once more. Okay. And here at the second repetition there's this small change. Usually after hitting the hammer on the second fret of the E string, we did the hammer on the 14th fret of the A string, remember? But at the second repetition we will instead do the hammer on the 14th fret of the D string. Okay, so instead of, we will do. Okay, let's play the whole second repetition that we have so far. Okay, and after this we had the second percussive part, which went like this. and this third percussive part basically will also stay the same. So we play, and then we have this hammer-ons, the slamming the strings like this, but instead we will do something slightly different. We will hit the strings above the 12th fret like we used to, but at the same time we will put our hand onto the left substring, and then after hitting the strings above the 12th fret we will press the E substring like this. Okay. And then we will immediately hit the strings above the 12th fret a second time, and after hitting them we release the E substring. So the whole thing will sound like this. Okay, let's play the whole second repetition so far. So this is the second repetition, and before we go into the chorus we will do 1/3 percussive pattern, which simply goes like this. So it's actually something that we learned before. Bass, hi-hat, bass, hi-hat, bass, snare. So let's play the whole thing from this video with all modifications and stuff. Let's go. Let's do it once again, a little bit slower. Now let's get into the chorus. For the chorus I will first teach you 2 patterns that will occur pretty often, so we will learn them in isolation first, and then when we go for actually learning the chorus we will have a much easier time. I will call the 2 patterns the small decline and the big decline. Let's start with the big decline. The big decline pattern goes as follows. You put your ring finger on the E string, your middle finger on the B string and your index finger on the G string. And what you then do is you pull the E string, you pull the B string, you pull the G string, and then with your left ring finger you do a hammer on the 5th fret of the D string. As you might hear, it's not that easy because you don't do it really often, but just try to practice this several times. This is our big decline pattern. So E string, B string, G string, D string hammer on 5th fret. small decline pattern that we will have is going like this. We will have our middle finger on the E string and our index finger on the B string. Then we pull the E string, we pull the B string, and then we will do a hammer on with our left index finger this time on the 7th fret of the D string. Okay, so it will be this is our small decline. Let's try to play both patterns. Big decline, big decline, small decline. Big decline, again big decline, and small decline. Small decline. If needed, pause this video, take yourself time with this, because if you really memorize these two patterns, you will have a much easier time learning the chorus. So now that we learned these two patterns, the big decline and the small decline patterns, we can start learning the actual chorus. First, we will start with a hammer on of our left index finger on the 5th fret of the G string. And this hammer on happens at the exact same time as we did our snare drum at the end of the last part we learned. So these two will happen at the same time. You make the snare drum and you hit the 5th fret of the G string. Okay. Next, from this hammer on, we do a pull off. So we just pull the G string. And immediately after pulling it, we do a hammer on the same fret again. So it will sound like this. Okay. Next, we slide our index finger 2 frets up, so from the 5th fret to the 7th fret. And if we do it right, it will sound like this. For the next, we need our right hand to come to help. So with our right index finger now, we do a hammer on again on the G string, but this time on the 9th fret. Okay, so the whole sequence will be let's do it again a little bit slower. Okay. Now we need some bass notes. So we take our index finger off the G string, and the next hammer on is happening on the 7th fret of the E string. Okay, so the whole thing so far. And now, this is the first time that we will play a big decline pattern, okay? So we will now do the big decline pattern, but we will keep our left index finger pressing down on the E string because we want the E string to continue vibrating. So we don't take our hands off completely. Instead, we try to play the big decline pattern while keeping especially the left index finger into place. So, big decline. We just did the hammer on the E string, and now we pull the E string, B string, G string, hammer on the D string, okay? Remember, this was our big decline pattern. And we play this big decline pattern directly after hitting this E string. Okay, let's play the whole thing so far. Let's do it again. Okay, next thing is our index finger does a hammer on the 8th fret of the B string. So after the big pattern, hammer on the 8th fret of the B string. So starting from the E, hammer on. Now it's the first time that we played a small declined pattern. So remember, middle finger pulls the E string, index finger pulls the B string, and left index finger does hammer onto the 7th fret of the D string. Let's play the whole thing so far, starting from the hammer on the E string. Again, hammer on the E string, big decline, hammer on the B string, small decline. Let's do it one last time. Big decline, hammer on B string, small decline. Okay. So the next hammer on that our right index finger is going to make is on the 7th fret of the G string. So remember, we came from the small decline, and now the hammer on the 7th fret of the G string. So actually the two index fingers are kissing there for a moment. But our left index finger now wants to go back to the E string. So we will repeat our hammer on the 7th fret of the E string. Okay, let's repeat the thing from the small decline that we had. Again. Okay, I think at this point let's play the whole chorus that we learned so far. we start with the hammer on there while slapping the snare drum. Let's do it once again, a little bit slower. Okay, we've gotten pretty far already. The next thing we will play is we will play another big decline. So next, our index finger is again doing a hammer on. This hammer on will happen on the 7th fret of the B string. And after this hammer on, there comes another small decline. You already know what it means. And after this small decline, our index finger now moves a little bit upwards. The next hammer on of our index finger is going to be on the 10th fret of the G string. So coming from our small decline. And at this point we need another bass note. We need this bass note here. We do a hammer on the 5th fret of the E string with our ring finger. So coming from the small decline, let's do it again. And what comes next is again a big decline. Now, what might be a little bit challenging, we need for the big decline, remember we need our left ring finger to be on the D string, but right now it's on the E string, so we just have to switch that. So let's start playing the big decline pattern. So basically you do the hammer on here and then play the big decline, and the moment you need the ring finger on the D string, you put it onto the D string. But only put it there when we really need it, because again we want the E string to vibrate as long as possible. Okay. Next thing is hammer on of the index finger on the 7th fret of the B string. So next a small decline. And again our index finger now will kiss. And then again we want a bass note. Previously this was here on the E string, but now remember we still are on the 5th fret of the E string. So from here our ring finger again does the hammer on the 5th fret of the E string. And then we play a big decline. So again, your ring finger has to switch down there after the hammer on the E string. Right, so let's play it again from the small decline. And now we are already very close to the end. I suggest before that we finish it, let's play the whole thing that we have so far again, to make sure we are not getting lost or confused here. Let's start again with the snare drum on the right side with our hammer on the 5th fret of the G string. Let's do it once more, a little bit slower. Big decline. Hammer on. Small decline. Hammer on. Big decline. Hammer on. Small decline. Hammer on, big decline, hammer on, small decline, hammer on, big decline, we're almost done. From this point now, the last thing that we do is we do a hammer on onto the 8th fret of the B string. So remember, we are coming from the big decline, do the hammer on onto the 8th fret of the B string, do a small decline for the last time, and then finally do one hammer on onto the 9th fret of the G string. Okay, so let's repeat the last sequence from the big decline. So now let's play the whole thing at once. And at this point, the chorus is basically repeated exactly the same way a second time, okay? And when you want to repeat it, this is basically after this hammer on, you just start the whole thing again with hitting the E string on the 7th fret. So I will now play the whole thing with the repetition, okay? Now for the end, let's go through all the things that we learned in this video in sequence. think that's basically it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you were able to follow along. If not, if you have any questions, please ask them in the comments. Also, if you want a fourth part, let me know that in the comments as well, and make sure to subscribe to not miss any future videos. Thank you so much and goodbye.